In the late 1960s, a figure emerged from the shadows of Northern California who would go on to haunt the nation's imagination for decades. He called himself the Zodiac, a name that struck terror into the hearts of both police and the public. Unlike most killers who sought to hide their crimes, the Zodiac reveled in attention. He was taunting, arrogant, and chillingly meticulous. His letters to newspapers, filled with ciphers, riddles, and threats, were not just a means of communication. They were his way of proving his power, showing the world that he could kill without being caught. The story begins on a warm December night in 1968 in Benicia, California. Two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, went out for what was meant to be a quiet evening together. They never returned home. Their bodies were discovered on a lonely stretch of road, and the crime had no apparent motive. There was no robbery, no obvious reason for the murders. But this was just the beginning. On July 4th, 1969, less than a year later, another young couple, Darlene Farron and Mike Mageau, were sitting in a car at a secluded lover's lane in Vallejo. Out of the darkness, a man approached their vehicle and opened fire. Darlene was killed instantly, while Mike barely survived, giving police a description of their attacker, a stocky man with glasses. Later that same night, the Vallejo Police Department received a chilling phone call from a man who calmly confessed to the shootings, even referencing the earlier Benicia murders. Just weeks later, newspapers in San Francisco received handwritten letters from someone claiming to be the killer. They were arrogant and mocking, demanding that the letters be published on the front page, or else more people would die. Each letter contained strange symbols, codes, and cryptic messages. One began with the now infamous phrase, "This is a Zodiac speaking." And just like that, a name was born, a name that would become synonymous with fear. The Zodiac ciphers were some of the most confounding puzzles in criminal history. One of the first was cracked by a schoolteacher and his wife, revealing a disturbing message in which the killer described his joy in taking lives, comparing humans to dangerous animals. But the message ended with a chilling twist. His true identity was hidden within the code, a puzzle that even today has never been fully solved. The killings continued. In September 1969 at Lake Berryessa, college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a picnic when a hooded man approached them, wearing a black executioner-style mask with a white crosshair symbol on the chest. He tied them up before brutally stabbing them. Brian survived, but Cecilia tragically died. The Zodiac later called police to report the attack, leaving behind his unmistakable symbol carved into the victim's car door. Only weeks later, in San Francisco, cab driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger who directed him to a residential area. Without warning, the passenger shot Stein in the head. Unlike his previous murders in secluded areas, this crime took place in a neighborhood, and witnesses even saw the killer wiping fingerprints in the cab before walking away. When police arrived, they were only minutes too late. The Zodiac had vanished into night. After this, the letters escalated. He taunted police, claiming he had planted bombs around the city, and bragged about the number of victims he had killed, though investigators could only link him directly to a handful of cases. The newspapers were flooded with his cryptic notes, many ending with his signature crosshair symbol and his mocking phrase, "Have fun trying to catch me." Despite the growing fear, the Zodiac seemed to thrive on his notoriety. His letters were filled with riddles, strange references to pop culture, and bizarre demands. He seemed less concerned with killing for personal satisfaction, and more obsessed with creating an ongoing game with the public and police. The investigation stretched across decades, with hundreds of suspects questioned. Arthur Lee Allen, a former schoolteacher with a troubled past, became one of the prime suspects. He matched several descriptions and had unsettling connections to some of the crimes. Yet, despite years of scrutiny, no solid evidence ever tied him directly to the Zodiac murders. Others came under suspicion as well, but the evidence always fell short. For years, amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike pored over the Zodiac ciphers. Some codes remained unsolved for over 50 years, until 2020 when a group of codebreakers finally cracked the infamous 340 cipher, revealing another eerie message in which the Zodiac mocked the authorities and promised more chaos. Yet, even that message contained no clues to his real name. The Zodiac claimed to have killed as many as 37 people, though only 7 confirmed victims are tied to him. Was he inflating his own legend? Or was he truly responsible for many more unsolved murders across California? That question remains unanswered. By the 1970s, the letters slowed down and the confirmed murders ceased. Some believe the Zodiac may have died, been imprisoned for unrelated crimes, or simply stopped. Others think he might have moved and continued elsewhere under a different name. Decades later, the Zodiac Killer remains one of the most infamous and elusive criminals in history. His taunts, his symbols, and his unsolved ciphers have secured his place in the dark hall of American crime legends. Despite modern advances in DNA testing and forensic technology, his identity has never been officially confirmed. The Zodiac case endures not only because of the brutality of the crimes, but because of the mystery that surrounds it. Who was the man behind the mask and the cryptic letters? Why did he choose his victims? And how was he able to vanish so completely from the spotlight he once seemed to crave? To this day, the world waits for the answers. The Zodiac himself once promised that his name was hidden in his puzzles, daring investigators to solve them. Yet his riddle remains unsolved, his identity forever obscured in the shadows. And so, the Zodiac Killer remains a ghost, one of history's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Please subscribe for more true crime stories.